Steam Next Fest has come around once more, practically fit to burst with demos and samples of cool upcoming releases, and I've been checking them out. As always, there's no guarantee these demos will stay up after the festival and into the future, but here's a bunch of games that really got my attention. Crabmeat is a first-person, point-and-click, survival horror fishing game made by Nicholas McDonnell and Mitchell Pasmans. Apologies if I'm not saying that right. I've covered a couple of horror fishing games at this point, but this game is different, because we're not catching fish, we're catching crabs. Crabs are not fish. I'm smart. Dora told me so. The premise of the game is that we are a person who's living in the dystopian apocalypse of near-future Australia. Truly a cruel and inhospitable place. We have dared to overdraw our bank account, and so the Feudo State's Robo-Debt 2 program has revoked our citizenship, and sentenced us to go catch a literal boatload of crab, or else our life is forfeit via a toxic capsule injected into our neck. So basically this is Escape from New York mixed with Deadliest Catch. Pretty grim, but no point thinking about it. Just sign on the bottom line there, and Scott Morrison will get you laying traps in no time. What a time to be alive. The most striking thing about Crabmeat is that while it is first person, it is driven entirely by the mouse. WASD will not help you here. You click to walk, to pick stuff up, to use equipment, right-click to see your inventory and read about what you've got to do. The boat is also free to explore, but that means you have to walk and turn and interact with everything physically. It is undeniably a disorientating feeling, and it's definitely intentional. In a similar way to how Iron Lung made you consider your space and your vessel, the whole game feels like it's trying to drive you into feeling you're out of your element. I mean, if I was suddenly thrown onto a boat to catch crabs, I wouldn't have my sea legs either. This also extends into the meticulous process by which you have to go out into the frozen waters of South Australia to catch crabs, and it's worth going into it step by step. First, you have to drive the boat out to a designated fishing spot, with completely manual controls for speed, turning, and weighing anchor. Once you're where you need to be, you need to take the bait from the icebox and put it in the pots. Use the crane to pick up the cage and pop it down into the waters. Now, you need to wait for it to fill. Fortunately, computer terminals around the boat will tell you how full it's getting and if your bait is still good. So kill time by exploring the ship and gathering tools you might need in the future until it's time to get the pots again. However, you don't use the crane. Oh no. What you need to use is the winch, which is on the port side, whereas the pots we're depositing on the starboard side. So go back to the bridge, swing the old girl around, and then you can use the definitely accurate harpoon gun to hit the buoys and winch in the haul. From here, you need to sort the catch. Fish are no good, and small crabs are unpatriotic, so send those back into the water, and keep the good ones. All done. Return the empty cage to the boat, ready to do it all over again. It is laborious. It's a job with many responsibilities, but that comes with a nice sense of satisfaction to getting it all right. The fact you're also dealing with the fiddly method of controls makes it feel very physical and demanding, which conveys the sense of the work much better than if it had had more simplified methods. With hotkeys and shortcuts and a chair from which you can control the whole process. No. You are sentenced to work, and the game wants to make you feel it. It's still satisfying, but convenience is not on the menu. All the better too, I think, because this is a horror game. And while it's nice to sail these waters, take in the sights, and it looks like there might be things on the map which could reward the intrepid explorer, the fact that you are straining just a little to do anything means that you are never comfortable. It is this uneasiness that the game wants to capitalize on. What on earth is that noise? Oh dear. Well, I have the right tool for this job. Shit, I didn't load it. Shit, I don't know how to load it. You know what? Forget the gun. Crabmeat is coming out on the 10th of March, 2026. The game is apparently going to be short, of about 2 to 3 hours long, which seems fine by me. Hopefully in the full release, I'll continue to avoid being dragged down to the bottom of the bucket. Ardenfall is a first-person RPG made by Spellcast Studios. The game has been in development for several years, and this demo has actually been available for quite a while too, but it's been updated and improved over time. This is my first go-around with it, and I like what I see. The game is heavily inspired by the Elder Scrolls series, and I feel if a small indie studio says they want to make an RPG, like an Elder Scrolls game, you should speak to them like you're talking to a person standing on the edge of a very high place. Not only that, but Ardenfall is specifically trying to emulate Morrowind. Even the name is a big reference. So now it's like the person is standing on the edge of an active volcano. This is not a big team, but they have been at this for the better part of a decade now, and I think the hard work really shines. You start the game and make a character, 2 flavors of elf and a dwarf, no regular humans for you. Your ship gets caught in a storm, and you wash ashore the Isle of Ardenfall. From here, the world is your oyster, but staying on the main quest will show you it has all the Elder Scrolls elements. Skills like heavy and light armor, one-hand or two-hand weapons, bows and arrows, sneaking and stealing, and magic too in various flavors. You can even loot almost every container in the game and fill up on so much useless junk that vendors won't have enough coin to trade with you. I even had this one enemy stuck in the geometry, so we feel very authentic. It doesn't have a physics engine, but this is Morrowind, not Oblivion, so that's understandable. Ardenfall hits all the right marks on paper, and its execution is quite interesting too. It definitely wants to catch the idea of being a stranger in a weird alien world, like Morrowind, but rather than making everything brown and foggy, it's trying to go the distance with this above-ground underwater vibe. The trees are coral and the grass is seaweed, but I'm walking around. It's colourful and quite pleasant to look at, even if the art style purposefully lacks detail. The only part of the visuals I'm not a big fan of is the models of the monsters. The creatures themselves are really varied and creative, like this one monster whose head flies off and starts attacking you when you beat them, and fighting them can be fun, but sometimes seeing them against the environment can be tough, and their animations are definitely on the janky side. Combat feels pretty alright though. I wasn't expecting it to be as responsive as Skyrim, and melee can definitely feel a little floaty at first, but I was able to get used to the rhythm as I went. Plus, there's a whole bunch of options available to you, like everything I mentioned above, but you can also throw poison bottles at your enemies too. There's potions abound with all kinds of magical effects, and you can get completely wild with them. Actual game-breaking stuff. Except the game will reward you for doing this, hiding more stuff in tucked away locations and unique encounters, so they're clearly expecting it. That's really cool. The freedom is the main focus of the game. The quest journal is here and it is in the Morrowind flavour of giving you directions to a thing rather than specific points. If that scares you, the map will give you more of a direction and highlight the area where your quest is telling you to go. But that's the thing. Just highlight the area where it'll be, but it's still on you to go in and find it. There's also no quest marker visible on screen in gameplay, so it's on you to observe your surroundings, and it feels super engaging. The game manages to get that sense of wonder, coziness, and immersion that I often get from a Bethesda RPG. But, at least in just this early slice, it seems to be promising choice and consequence that later Bethesda titles seem to be lacking in otherwise. For instance, in character creation I could take on traits about my character, which would appear in dialogue. I could even use the fact I was a female character to convince this rich arsehole to give me his nice expensive clothes, and laugh in his face for being an idiot too if I wanted. People in the village remarked on my race. There's a reputation system with them too, which affected how they treated me. But that's not all. There are skill checks. Honest to God, skill checks in the game. And some will have multiple solutions, including using items to solve them that way instead. I've never been so happy to not be able to fit through a wall. Maybe your character can, but mine can't. That's cool! This also fits into the quest design too. The big quest you do in the game is one where a big creature is blocking the tunnel out of town. The locals want it gone so trade can open up again, but peacefully, as the creature is above the town's storehouses. You then have options for what you want to do here, like the aforementioned pacifist methods, or more malicious and violent ways if you prefer. It's up to you. Or you can ignore it and start potion maxing to fly around the problem. Or even something simpler, like swimming around the coast to the next area. You don't have to care. You've got your own problems. Ardenfall is a game that shows its heart on its sleeve. It knows what it wants to be, and despite lofty goals, it actually seems to be meeting them. The game will be launching into early access in 2026, and we can only hope that the full release won't have so many cliff racers.
They say that there is a secret to defeating death. Somewhere beyond Bloodrock Mountain and through the deadly valleys of Gravewood, there it lies. Known only by legend as the Forbidden Dungeon.
That's quite the foreboding introduction. Would it surprise you to learn it's for a Solitaire game? Forbidden Solitaire is a horror solitaire game made by Grey Alien Games and Night Signal Entertainment. The premise is simple, yet bizarre. You are a wizard delving into darkest depths, and you use the medium of solitaire to do everything. Search for secrets, open passageways, and fighting gribbly ghoulies. This might not sound like the most exciting premise, but out of everything I played, this was one of the titles where the end of demo screen gave me the biggest whiplash. I wanted to keep flipping my cards forever. Let me back in! So this is a funky remix of Solitaire. I should say out of the gate, your time being bored in the school computer room won't be that big a help. When you begin doing anything in the game, you get a card at the bottom. You then need to click a card that is one higher or lower than that card's value. If you can't, then draw a new card from the deck below. You don't have to worry about alternating suits, and thank God, because even the thought of doing that here is giving me a headache. If you can keep clicking cards without drawing them, then you can develop a combo. This can both charge up a more powerful attack against enemies, and also give you more mana, which you can use to unleash a storm of wizardly destruction on the battlefield. Plus, the monsters will be attacking you, so you'll want to avoid drawing and letting them get a hit on you if you can help it. There's a few things to aid you with this. Firstly, you earn gold whilst playing, which can be traded to this eyeball. They will grant you gems which you embed into your hand. Accessorizing like the world's most dedicated Steven Universe fan will give you passive bonuses that will take the edge off of encounters. There are special cards too whilst trawling through these tombs. One-off bonuses to armor and instant attacks on the enemy are nice, but there are also special joker cards which can do different things, like be a stand-in for any card or shuffle the board and more. You can hold on to these to use them at any time too, so their use can become tactical and you ought to consider when's best. I used all of mine on a chump of an enemy just because I wanted to get a big combo, but then I ended up fighting a boss next and regretted not having these cards on hand. I still won, but my wizard was nearly wasted. It is a linear game, just moving from encounter to encounter, but the atmosphere keeps you absorbed pretty effectively. There's a cheesy 90s aesthetic that feels authentic to a CD-ROM game for the time, and I appreciate the lengths they went to for such a bit, especially considering I didn't mention... This game is a game within the game. Yeah, you are actually sitting down at a fake operating system to play this. As you go forward, you'll be getting messages from your own sibling who's looking into Forbidden Solitaire and its history. They send you images of when it came out and the response it got, including protests from concerned parents. Again, really capturing that 90s game spirit. But there's a sinister aspect to it too. You might be thinking of Balatro when playing this or watching this, and while there's definitely a slew of titles that have been chasing that trend by remixing classic games with roguelike elements and upgrade stores, Grey Alien Games have actually been making solitaire titles in this vein for a long time. There's something about the older game's presentation that reminds me of PopCap titles back in their heyday, which maybe explains how the game can be as addictive as it can. Night Signal are also quite experienced on the horror front, so this coupling might seem odd, but it's hard to deny it works out. Forbidden Solitaire is great. It has a presentation that's all its own, and seems to be promising mysteries and horrors inside. It's a good twist on something familiar, and it actually helps make the game feel as compelling as it does. I both want to see what was going on behind the scenes of this violent card game, and also want to play more of the violent card game. It's like Duelist Kingdom all over again. Forbidden Solitaire is meant to be out later this year. I hope I can have the patience to wait for it. Scott Pilgrim EX is a 2D beat-em-up game made by Tribute Games. A long time ago, there was a tie-in game for the Scott Pilgrim vs. the World movie, which joined the exclusive club of movie-licensed games that aren't terrible. It had great art, a fantastic soundtrack, and was a fun 2D brawler on top of that. Scott Pilgrim EX follows on from that game in basically every way, so forgive me for the 100 comparisons I'm going to be making when talking about it. The art direction is vibrant and full of life, with adorable and detailed pixel art flooding the screen at all times, with Paul Robertson, one of the main artists from the original, returning. Anna Managuchi is back too, with some new tracks to pepper the action. Even the comic's author, Brian O'Malley, is on board for that extra shine of authenticity. The game takes place after the events of Scott Pilgrim, in whatever form you're familiar with. Don't worry if you haven't seen it or read it, because all you need to know is that Scott's band, Sex Bob-omb, has had all its members kidnapped by the evil Metal Scott. And now it's up to him to go out there and save everyone. Or Ramona, his girlfriend. I chose to play as her and not Scott. The beat-em-up gameplay is about everything you could want, which makes sense considering the developer is the same one who made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge game and Marvel Cosmic Invasion. They know what they're doing. Light attacks, heavy attacks, throws, jumps, specials, and also assists from supporting characters, which can be swapped out. It controls pretty well. I think it feels a bit heavier compared to the original, but still pretty nice overall. It floods you with a lot of enemies to deal with, but it always felt manageable, at least in this early look. There's an early encounter with Metal Scott that you're supposed to lose, I think, but I did feel like if I was locked in enough, that I could maybe beat him. It might also help if you bring friends along, as it does support 4-player co-op. So if you're missing Castle Crasher's chaos, this might be the game for you. Like the original though, there are some RPG elements. Beating enemies helps you level up and raise stats, which will let you hit harder and get hit less hard. You also collect coins in the game to spend at shops, where you can get healing items, food that raises your stats, and equipment that will further give you an edge. This means it's less a straightforward arcade brawler, like classic Streets of Rage for example, but I do like that the structure reflects this change more. The original had set levels that you could go back and forth between, but this game seems to have a looser and more open structure, meaning you can go back and forth between different screens at will, exploring the whole city freely. If you need to level up certain stats, you can just go fighting for cash before organically going to the specific store you want. There's no need to specifically grind entire stages, boss fights and all, just to meet a rising difficulty curve, which the first game was definitely guilty of. Plus, in these open environments are people to talk to who might give you optional challenges for further rewards. You don't see a lot of the game's structure before the demo ends, so it's hard to say how it pulls it off. But I liked what I saw here. It's a good fun game about beating up dudes. What more could you want? Scott Pilgrim EX will let you loose across the streets of Toronto and beyond on March 3rd. Oh, EX. I get it. Deep Snow Delivery is a delivery exploration game by Drenindok Limited. In the game, you are a two-person crew piloting a tank, except this tank doesn't fight, it collects scrap and delivers materials to outposts in the freezing cold. The whole game takes place inside your vehicle. You rumble out on heavy treads across the snow, and you can use a mechanical arm to pick up items and place them in your cargo bay. You can carry as much as you can physically fit in there, and some objects can be interesting shapes to fit inside. You can sell loose scrap to take to outposts, or take on delivery missions that ask you to go to new or old areas. It's sort of like Death Stranding meets Girls Last Tour, which is an odd mix on the face of things, but it actually works out really well. We're thick in the oppressive loneliness of a desolate world, but the routine of our job keeps us going. Between outposts, we get small glimpses of the human life that still continues despite the world being this way. It's a little melancholic, but it makes getting the work done feel special, like I'm preserving a flame to keep burning a little while longer. Like Death Stranding, you could say this is a game about pressing forward from point A to point B and dismiss it outright, but that'd be reductive, both there and here. Terrain is a challenge in this game, such as steep hills that will impede your progress or make you unstable as you descend. Oppressive darkness will make things hard to see, and also ice might crack depending on how heavy a load you're carrying. You'll be graded for getting all the cargo to a location, and the quality in which it arrives, so these hazards will end up challenging that. The higher your grade, the more money you get, which can be spent on useful upgrades to your tank, from simple engine upgrades to new features like scanners and cruise control. There's also some cute personalization options to make your tank your own. This includes a radio to play music, as the game is otherwise quite diegetic in terms of audio. And you can even add your own songs to the radio, so that's nice. For extra immersion, the speakers you start off with distort at higher volumes, and you have to upgrade them. Or you can get headphones, but that will shut out the noise around you. It's touches like this that make the tank feel yours. It's your own steel alloy home away from home. At one point you can buy explosives to clear some wreckage to make a shortcut between some difficult to reach spaces, which is a fun way of interacting with the world. I'm mentioning this mostly because the game keeps it a little bit too hidden, and I just assumed this was more or less the end of the demo based on how difficult it was to get to this base. This all makes for a really solid core, but the game also has a story for you to follow. Things might seem a little loose and carefree at first, as you just make deliveries between all the different bases without much going on besides the atmosphere. However, then comes a shift, and I'm actually going to throw up a spoiler warning here for the demo. If you're already in, just skip to the next game and play this already. Right. So, I set out and began cresting a hill, when... I don't think that was the sun. All of a sudden, there's a drive now, to go out from the comfy home that you know and reach the Great Tower that's been in the distance this entire game. The two characters are somewhat torn on doing this because it might mean they can never return, and I felt it. I was relaxed and happy just doing these deliveries, so to go out to the tower that is so impossibly far away feels as daunting to me, the player, as it does to the characters. But you know what? I'm in. I'm up for it. I want to see what else this world has to offer me. Deep Snow Delivery doesn't have a release date yet, but I'll be eagerly checking the tracking on this delivery. DownSouth is a 2D platformer made by Troop Sushi. The press start screen is a remarkably melancholic opening to a game that couldn't be more loud and in your face if it tried. It takes the aesthetic of 90s mascot platformers and then goes on to run absolutely wild with it. I should say I was first introduced to the game by a video from the YouTuber EuroThug4000. She makes good videos, cozy reviews and essays on fun little games and experiences, and I'd recommend checking out her channel if you haven't. She's always looking for small indie games, exploring horror titles, and other interesting curiosities. I just thought it right to give her a shout out before we get started. I mean, it felt like the game was reminding me to as well. Anyway, what's with this bean? You play as South, a bean with a wicked grin stuck on their face. For some reason it feels like he'd be the face of a dodgy magazine's mobile ringtone advert from back in the day, or be the sticker on the rear window of a guy who does not know how to drive his Peugeot 106. And I mean this in the most complimentary way I can. It feels like it's what it's going for. I mean, look at this world. Every single square inch of this game is stuffed with detail. Dingy, dirty, rusty slums lit up by neon lights, and the main colour you see comes from the graffiti plastered over the walls. Every single area is a feast for the eyes, and these busy screens immerse you in the feel of these underground squalid locales. The music as well needs to be mentioned for how well it fits these areas, and it makes DownSouth one of those games where I need to check my script if I'm saying vibe too much, because this is a vibe. A good vibe, despite being a bad vibe. Am I making sense? Playing the game is as simple gets. There's a button for jumping and a button for attacking. Jump on platforms, attack enemies, get coins. Easy. There's wall jumping too, some more technical stuff like high jumping after a crouch, and getting more airtime by attacking, but overall, not outside what you'd expect. Later, an NPC gives you a soul, which might sound strange, and it is, but don't worry about it right now. The soul is a ranged ability that can break things from afar, but also pick up objects and enemies too, allowing you to carry stuff around and throw them whilst beaning about. It's used for both puzzle solving and attacking, and certainly makes it feel fresh, even if its nature in the world raises questions. The levels are quite large and you're not railroaded to keep making progress all the time. There can be multiple paths forward or even backward. The game lets you choose the best way through, and there's also a ton of secrets that can be found for anyone willing to do the unthinkable and go left in a 2D platformer instead of right. There are also more tricky ones to find. So overall, the game has all the bells and whistles to feel good in the moment to moment. But then there's another aspect. The world is populated by creatures who you can talk to. And while these are fun and reinforce the game's twisted tone, you can also choose how to respond to them sometimes. And this is where the morality of DownSouth comes in. Oh yes, this 2D platformer has morality, and this can change how the game plays out. A big choice in the game has some pretty serious immediate consequences, both narratively and with gameplay. It's not totally clear by just this demo how this will unfold across the game, whether it'll end up being like Undertale meets Rayman, but it makes the proceedings carry so much more weight just by the judgment scale's presence. For the record, I want it to be as nice as possible, because I'm just a small bean. But this opened me up to being a naive sucker, and people would take advantage of me to fleece me of all my money. A lot of choices come down to saving yourself or saving others, and it's an interesting through line to have throughout a cheeky mascot platformer. I actually second-guessed if I should be killing these enemies and taking their essence too. That might just be paranoia, but I didn't seem to be punished for it in this early stage. It's not like trying to beat a Mori without attacking or whatever. DownSouth is not a flawless game, but this is still early, and I want to see this bean sprout. The game is running a Kickstarter right now, as of time of this recording, so you can show your support for the game. It's nice to see a Kickstarter that shows off a pretty substantial early portion of itself before raising money, so back the game if you can and like the look of it. We're probably a while off from DownSouth coming out, but I want to see what kind of magic is inside this bean. Wait. What? What the fuck? Helix, Descent and Ascent is a 2D puzzle adventure game made by Badass Mongoose. In the game, you play as a funny-looking creature whose legs are very long. Hypnotically long, in fact. I just can't stop looking at the smoothness of this lad's gait. I'm not 100% sure on the story, as it is one of those games that eschews dialogue in favour of being visual. There is another creature who looks like us, albeit more scarred, and is the opposite shade to us at all times. They might be a foe, or a friend, or an indifferent trickster. It's hard to say, but that's the mystery that'll be driving you forward. The visuals are a standout here. With an art style reminiscent of black and white comics and older manga, it feels like you can see the pen strokes in every area, and despite the lack of colour, everything on the screen feels remarkably distinct. The world is filled with both natural and artificial elements, and the art makes the contrast actually feel all the sharper. Though light and darkness aren't a mechanic that the demo explores, the shifting palette lets claustrophobia come in despite the game always keeping the Zelda-style overhead view. As for how it plays, it's a game about exploring the world and solving puzzles to uncover its secrets. You get two main powers in the demo. The first is an ability that creates blocks. These can be pushed around and used as bridges across water, or as weights to hold down buttons. So far, so Sokobon. There is another ability you get which allows you to create a little projection of your head, which can go through vents and be exploded to press buttons. Both of these feel powerful, but there are limits. The little projection can only last for certain amounts of time, so you sometimes have to be creative about when and where you activate them. You can also only make 2 blocks at a time, and I don't mean per screen. If you break a box that was holding down a button in another area by summoning a new one, then suddenly that button will no longer be pressed. It's these limits that create the necessary friction for the puzzles to make you feel smart when you conquer them. But you can also synergize these abilities. The little ghost head can possess blocks and fly around with them, depositing them where you need them to go, which offers a new angle to play around with. The full game will apparently have a couple dozen of different abilities. You can even see your doppelganger utilizing some that you haven't unlocked yet. Look at that! It's like they're teasing us. I want that! There are also these terminals where you play a little platforming game to open doors and the like, and it's always you against your doppelganger, and the attacks they inflict on you correspond to your powers. It's kind of intriguing. Even exploring the world itself is a challenge. There's secrets for you to find which begin to shed some light on what a strange place this is, but my main motivator was just wanting to see more of it. It's a beautiful looking game and I just couldn't tear my eyes away. It hits the right notes with a vague and wordless story by making a world that feels interesting to be in, and that's a major credit to the game. Helix, Descent and Ascent will descend and ascend onto our screens later this year. Pragmata is a third-person shooter and line puzzle game made by Capcom. I'm not against covering AAA games on these videos, but they have to be doing something cool or interesting for me to want to share them like this. So Pragmata here is a new IP from Capcom, complete with an interesting setting, and also is trying something new with its gameplay loop. I want more of this from my AAA studios, not waves of layoffs followed by live service guff no one wanted. I'm not entirely clear on the premise of Pragmata, and that's with having seen the trailers for it too. What's safe to say is we are an astronaut named Hugh. The robots here have all gone haywire and are trying to kill him. Fortunately, we have a little android girl companion named Diana, who can hack the robots to help us. So now we have to make our way through the complex, trying to solve whatever is going on here. Pragmata's big hook is hacking. Enemies are thickly armoured, and you don't have a lot of shots to be working with. So, when aiming at an enemy, Diana can hack them, which opens this little line puzzle game. Get to the end node to hack them, hitting other nodes on the way to increase the hack's efficacy, which makes the enemy considerably more vulnerable to your guns. I was concerned the hacking would feel inorganic or clumsy when paired with the game's shooting, but it actually works very well. You use your face buttons on the controller to pull it off, which means the actual act itself is very speedy. Plus, you can still move around whilst doing it, which then makes the gameplay challenge trying to get your hack completed without the metal menaces munching you. It's a game about multitasking, and before now, the experience is something you could probably only get by playing Resident Evil 4 with one hand and The Witness with another. So if you've been doing that, stop it. You don't have to keep playing Jonathan Blow games anymore. Fortunately, there are tools to help you in the game. You can acquire hacking software that lets you do different abilities if you hit their node in a hack, such as ones that hack all robots in a room, or makes a single target even more vulnerable. There's more weapons to find, like a shotgun for bigger damage, or a gun that can slow down enemies where they stand, meaning you can get your hacks and shots off without stressing too much. This is all in conjunction with your actual suit too. You feel quite heavy, as you might imagine, but with the help of rocket boosters, you can jump around, dodge out of the way of enemies, and even hover for a while. This can be used to get an edge in combat or to explore the environment. And though the game is quite linear, I love how frequently I was rewarded for poking around. There's even little doodads just floating in the environment, like a video game. This AAA game isn't afraid to just be a video game. I love that. Hugh and Diana's dynamic is that of a father and child, with the extra element of Diana not fully understanding human emotions. Relatable. It's not something we've never seen before, but the pair of them are charming.
Good job!
When you beat the demo, Diana will show you a drawing that she was making, and she'll show you different ones, I think, based on how quickly you beat the demo, which is very cool and did actually make me want to replay it. Pragmata is out on the 24th of April 2026. Check out this and any of the other demos featured here in the Demo Fest whilst you can, before the automatons tell you where to stick your laws of robotics.
Nope!
Thank you for watching. This was quite the bumper crop this time around. Getting started earlier for this really helps. And yet, there's more games I want to talk about. But maybe that can come later. Thank you very much to everyone who supports me in making these videos. It means a lot for me to be here still doing what I do. Patrons get to ask questions and Q&A segments at the end of videos, which we'll get into right now. What is a genre of game that maybe you didn't like when you first tried it, but has now grown on you? CRPGs. A lot of Western RPGs in general took me some time to get into the mindset of, but CRPGs felt especially alienating for a while. But with some good modern examples, I've now been dipping in a lot more, both old and new titles. What is an addition to a controller or handheld console, like the crank from the Playdate, that you think would lead to interesting game design choices? My first thought is turning the trackpad on the PS5 controller into a sort of actual haptic screen. That might be a basic answer, but it might actually get people to use that thing beyond just a really big select button. It'd probably also give the controller a 2-second lifespan too. But if we're including gimmick stuff like the Playdate, I did once have a dream about a controller that was like the Gom Jabbar in Dune, where you stick your hand in and there's switches inside you can press, and it vibrates and heats up, and the TV is showing you playing like knife games or something with your fingers. It wasn't a great dream, but I remember it. Maybe there's a market for that. Any RPG Maker games you're especially fond of? Omori, which I even mentioned here, and it's a contender for my favourite game ever. Fear and Hunger and Yume Nikki are games that I really appreciate as well. Ever thought about having a Discord server? No, not just because of what they're doing now, Jesus, but I've seen Discord servers go bad for some YouTubers, and I don't think it's something I'd want to be responsible for. Managing and moderating a growing community myself? I'd rather not do that. I'm quite introverted, and so I've never been too active on the larger Discord servers I'm part of anyway. It's just how I prefer things for now. Thank you all very much. Stay safe, stay strong, and I'll see you all next time. Wait, I've heard that before. Perhaps this is hell.